Looking for a podcast where sports betting meets reckless optimism, questionable logic, and maybe even occasionally a stroke of genius?
It's the Spread Zone Podcast with Rizzuto, Tim McKernan, and Anthony Stalter. 3 opinions, 0 guarantees. Endless entertainment. Whether you're betting big or just betting lunch, get in the Spread Zone. Find it now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Just a heads up to you folks sitting with a notebook and pen, MISCHKE, the new podcast here in Garage Logic Land, is now coming out twice a week, Wednesdays and Fridays. If you're in fact scribbling this down, Wednesday is kind of tough to spell. It's not like it sounds. You want to spell it W-E-N-Z, but that of course would be a mistake. Friday is spelled just like it sounds. You're going to be okay there, but Wednesday's a bugaboo. Let me tell you people, just a pain in the patootie. Jeez, it's hard. MISCHKE. MISCHKE. Who? Who? All right, let's do a show. Come on. Years ago, Peter Panagore was an accomplished mountain climber. He was a first responder on a ski patrol team. He was a lover of the outdoors. He was a fan of great adventure. But he had never been ice climbing before. That was new to him. His friend, also an experienced climber, talked him into trying ice climbing for the first time, a winter ice climb in the Canadian Rockies. It would be just a day climb, up and down, all before sunset, just to try it out. That's what it was supposed to be, anyway. The inexperience of the pair, however, made climbing slower than it should have been, slower than it would have been had they been more experienced with ice climbing. But they were real careful, see? They were more plodding. It slowed them down, not a ton, but enough to make it so that when they arrived at the top, the sun was already beginning to set. They were supposed to be getting near the bottom when the sun was setting. So this wasn't good. The sun going down meant temperatures going down as well. They knew they had to get down quickly, but they ended up descending in really extreme cold that they were ill-prepared for. They did not pack for a stay overnight on the mountain. They were not in a position to survive overnight, not with these plunging temperatures. They were in the Canadian Rockies. It was winter. They had to get down fast. But on the way down, their ropes got stuck in a rock crevice and then froze to the ice. Temperatures in the darkness dropped 30 degrees rapidly. They were in a serious bind. They were experienced climbers, but had never dealt with this world of ice before, nor this degree of brutally cold temps. They had been too overconfident on this climb. They misjudged their abilities, not knowing that ice climbing is radically different, a wholly unique form of mountain climbing. They realized they had made a fatal mistake. Both men began to face hypothermia, and it began to affect their thinking as they tried to free their rope so they could continue their descent. Without a rope, they would fall to their deaths trying to descend. But their rope was useless to them now. Temperatures continued to drop. Hypothermia intensified. Peter began to feel the waves of heat that come late in hypothermia, when people freezing begin to remove clothing instead of trying to stay covered up. His friend Tim saw that Peter was late in this deadly cycle of hypothermia, and he yelled at him to keep his jacket on. But Tim as well was experiencing the effects of hypothermia, and he was beginning to feel his thinking slowing and his reasoning becoming muddled. They were in a dire situation that offered them no way out, no way they could see. It was heartbreaking for Peter because he thought about his parents and how devastated they would be were he to die here. They had a 14-year-old daughter, Peter's sister, run away from home a few years earlier, and she was never seen again, despite the family's repeated and intensive searches for her. That had destroyed Peter's parents, and as he moved in and out of consciousness, he thought about them and how awful news of his death would be for them. But he was dying, and he knew it. He was medically trained and knew exactly what was happening to him. This was the end. And here, right here, is where I want to start this show, because here is where Peter dies. And it's his death that is the subject of this program. Now, Peter Panagore is here with me, so obviously he didn't stay dead. No, he did not. He had what so many thousands upon thousands of people have reported on this earth over the years. People also in dire situations, seeing their life ebbing, feeling themselves come to the end of their time on this earth. We call it a near-death experience. But I, personally, call it the death experience. For after reading hundreds of accounts over the years, and after interviewing many people who've known what Peter came to know, I have simply come to see this as a report of the experience of death, nothing more, nothing less. Extraordinary reports from the world beyond this physical realm. 2 or 3 reports would not have meant much to me, nor would scores of reports. But there are now tens of thousands of reports all over the world, countless reports, books and books and books, and documentary after documentary, stories that have been studied and that have been verified. And despite those who have wanted to poo-poo it all, the evidence proves far too daunting too much of the time, too overwhelming. There's too much now that science cannot explain. There was just an international conference in Chicago that wrapped up a few days ago. People from all over the world descending on that town. People who have known the near-death experience intimately. People who have extraordinarily similar tales to tell of what happens when their life force leaves their body. It's incredible stuff. It's the kind of story that, for me, just supersedes all others in importance. That's why I wanted to have Peter on the show. His story is yet another near-death experience. But as with so many of these, it was powerful enough to radically change Peter's life. And his telling of the experience, as with many others telling their stories, changes the lives of those who listen as well. It can't help but affect the lives of people who listen. Peter Panagore, coming to you right after this break. I do ads for MSP, that's Minneapolis St. Paul Plumbing, Heating, and Air. When I first needed a plumber and a furnace guy and an air conditioning guy, I was worried. I don't know anything about this stuff. You can steal from me. I'm an easy mark. So I contacted a pal of mine in the business. He'd been a friend of mine for over half a century. Yeah, we were good buds and had been from the time we were little boys. And what I knew was that this guy's integrity was such, and his whole philosophy and approach to life was such, that he was never going to do anything other than the best for anyone he worked for any customer. And I came to realize people can deeply trust the skill and integrity of MSP. Relax. You have your plumber, you have your furnace guy, your air conditioning guy, you're done. That's a place worth getting to, folks. and you can be there by calling MSP. The Wellshire Memory Care Centers are not facilities. They're sanctuaries for your loved ones. Sanctuaries. They understand that Alzheimer's and dementia are more than diseases. They are journeys. That's why the Wellshire has designed their communities with intention. 4 distinct households, each tailored to a specific stage of memory loss. Every resident at the Wellshire receives personalized care from a loving team that knows them by name, not by diagnosis. At the Wellshire, their commitment is simple: to provide a life of dignity, respect, and joy. Whether it's a walk through the secure courtyards, a chat over coffee, a favorite song played softly, the Wellshire focuses on what brings joy, what brings connection. Tour the Wellshire of Bloomington and Medina. I want to start at the point where hypothermia is taking its toll on you. Maybe we could take it from the point at which you start to experience a letting go. This is it. I didn't think this would be the day. This is the day. It's going to happen, and I will release my attempt to stop anything here.
That happened to me. I reached this point because the rope was stuck and my hypothermia became advanced enough. I recognized that I was going through the final stages, and I just recognized that I was never, ever going to get out of the situation, and I was going to die. And at that moment, acceptance, even my reptilian brain way down deep inside of me, which was this instinctive need for survival, even that gave up. And I had a peace sweep over me of acceptance. Okay, guess I'm going.
There was a beauty to the world around you that you were able to take in before feeling yourself slip away from this world. The beauty was the world itself around you, the stars, the night, the sound of the river below.
It was a most beautiful place to die. And once I accepted the inevitability of my death, once the peace settled upon me, calmness became clearly evident to me. I couldn't see the beauty that had surrounded me all night. I was hyper-focused on living. And once I gave up desire for living, I was swept with this contentment and acceptance and being in this most beautiful place with 10 million stars and galaxies twinkling every color over my head, and the river flowing below. The beauty of the light on the mountains and snows and glaciers was just pristine. At that point, I wasn't afraid. My fear had gone. Today was a good day to die.
There's an extraordinary thing there all by itself, and it's extraordinary to me because you don't yet know what's about to happen to you in this situation. Something that might make it later far more understandable to be accepting. Here, you are simply accepting the end of life, and as far as you know, the end of you and the end of everything with peace. And there's a lot of ways one could say, why isn't that terrifying?
I wish I could give you a clear answer for that.
But I understand, and I've heard it repeated often, that it so often is not. Maybe it's because some part of you knows exactly what's afoot.
The peace and calmness was also like a presence. The calm settled on me, and I had tunnel vision, which was something I'd never experienced. My vision was narrowing rapidly as if it was surrounded by a big black circle down to the size of a paper towel tube. And then as it shrunk even smaller, I was awake. I was awake in a way I hadn't ever been awake. I was awake and aware, and I didn't understand why I was awake. I felt myself come out of my body, wondering what's going on. And I looked. This very small pinprick of light appeared at a super vast distance in this deep darkness and expanded. And as it came toward me, it spoke to me telepathically saying, "You're coming with me." And I said to it, "I don't know what's going on, but I'm not going anywhere." And it snatched me out of myself and enveloped me. And as it enveloped me, I was severed from my physical body, and I didn't care about it. And I was swept back up the direction it had come, enveloped in this large plasma ball of light. This greater mind was feeding me comfort, wellness, and beauty. And I understood that it was a smaller portion of the divine mind. It was the divine mind speaking to me, these comforting communications that made me completely at ease. And it swept me back up the direction it came. And as it swept me back up the direction it came, I, from outside of that spherical energy, could see the spherical energy and me inside of it from another point of view. I was like the eye of God, seeing my soul self being carried by the angelic being. So it swept me back up the direction it had come. And as we reached this edge, it expanded or expelled me. And suddenly I was inside this galactic size emptiness, this no-thingness, this darkness. And I was alone in this darkness, but I was gigantic. I was the size of the sun in comparison to my human form, my previous human form. And I was made of energy. And in this state, I knew the original state of my own being preceding my birth, and remembered that I had always been this and only temporarily that. And in this state of being, in this no-thingness, which was utter darkness, was also simultaneously, paradoxically illuminated. So I could see in this darkness, and I could see in every direction in this darkness, and I was content. I was not afraid. I needed nothing other than myself in this space, seeing in every direction at once. And as I'm in this space, staring out into nothingness, heaven's door opens up, an outpouring of this vast light, which is gigantic in comparison to little tiny me, the size of the sun. It is enormously bigger than me, and it is pouring out light from itself. And it is the most attractive, seductive, luscious beauty, love, want it with all my soul. And in the moment of my wanting, I was in front of it. My desire became my action. And as I'm in front of this light that is now flowing like a waterfall and pouring out like a spray from a waterfall, it's transparent, it's translucent, and it's solid all at the same time. It's brilliant white light, bright enough to burn the iris of a human being, but there's no pain because I have no eyes, and it's pouring forth this beauty. And as it's pushing out this light, it's simultaneously white and 100,000 other colors. It was simultaneously one light and 10 zillion lights, all these different infrareds and ultraviolets and x-rays, and they're all sort of pixelated and iridescent. And it's not switching from one to the other. It's both simultaneously, and it's pouring out itself toward me, and it's speaking to me in a voice that has no sound. It's all life, capital A, capital L, all life, creative force of all there is. And it's intertwined with beauty and soothing bliss. And I want it. And so I reach to touch it. And as I touch it, it pulls me into itself. It tears me open and pours inside of me and expands me. And all of this all happens in timelessness. There's no sequence. There's no chronology. There's no forward or backwards. It's all at once. And everything that happened to me is all at once. And so I'm in this expansive, expanding state inside the light itself, becoming with the light. And when I'm in the light, I see this huge eyeball of the divine, and it's pouring forth light, and it's seeing me. And as it's seeing me, I can see me, and I'm illuminated. I am only illumination. And it was telling me, I made you, and I lived your life with you. I live your life with you. It's showing me all of my entire life, not like a movie, but like a one block of illumination. And in that, there are these tiny, tiny specks of blackness, like little ink drops. And these little ink drops, they are not light. And so I coalesced them, I grabbed them, I pulled them into one spot, and I tried to hide them from the divine light. And as I did this, I fell into that same darkness. So now I'm entered into this darkness, and in this darkness, it's all of the poor behavior, my bad deeds, my pain that I caused other people. And in this space, I am two people at once. I am always the previous Peter that I had been, and simultaneously, I'm all these other people receiving the pain that I'm giving away. All of this pain that I gave away in each individual episode, I feel the pain of the person I gave it to, and it's 10 times greater than what I had thought or even cared about. And as I'm going through this long sequence of all of the suffering I caused, this voice is still lovingly speaking to me. I love you. I love you. I made you. I know you. I love you. I love you. I love you. But I became so involved in the pain that I had caused in my own selfishness that the voice was muffled because of me. The divine wasn't judging me. The divine kept, I love you. I love you. I made you. Then it showed me that I was no different than all of humanity, neither better nor worse, just a human being, the nature of whom is to love and give pain in life as a function of just being an animal, as a function of being part of the structure of the whole universe, which is broken from end to end, meaning it's not the ultimate unlimited purity that the voice was. It was limited imperfection for its own existence. To be there at all, it couldn't be the totality of the purity that was pouring over all around me. And as I finally began to attend to the love being spoken to me, when I took my eye off myself, I was reinflated, and all of that suffering was forgiven. Not like I forgive you and I still bear the wound of what you did to me, but I love you anyway. Not like that at all, like it never existed. I was completely whole and filled. I just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, filled with beauty and joy, truth, love, happiness, understanding, knowledge, awe, wonder, magnificence, light, love, all of these things as one. All of these were me, and I was the light itself. And I expanded to this level at which I understood if I expanded more, this identity, my separate identity, would be annihilated, and I would fall back into the totality of the absolute, unnameable, ineffable beingness of God. I see divine love is all there is. Everything is made out of this unconditional love. It's all love. And all of this love is focused on me. And as I understand that I have always been loved and that I will be well and was well and always will be well, I understand that everything there is like that. And so this love isn't for me particularly as Peter, even though it feels like it's unique. It's for all that there is. And then it shows me Earth. And Earth is like a hologram where I'm seeing it as it is in time and space with every human on it. And every human being, some are sleeping, some are awake. There's wars and terrible violence and great beauty and love and plants and trees. The whole thing is there all at once. And inside of every human being is this golden speck of light. And that light is visible to me, and it is the divine self itself. And the planet is completely covered over with this density. Nobody can see the light inside anyone else. And it's pure beauty. Because they can't see it, we mistreat each other. But I can see it. And as I see and understand that as the most beloved there is in all the universe, everyone I see is most beloved there is in all the universe, and that nothing is ever lost. It always unfolds back into the love. And I love to quote Ulysses by James Joyce, where he says, "Love loves to love love." And as I see this, I see my mom and my dad. I see their lives up to this point and all of their suffering. And then they split, and they have two timelines. There's mom and dad with me dead and mom and dad with me alive. And I see into them. With me dead, My mom is like a nuclear bomb goes off in her brain. The essence of her is destroyed. And she is, well, driven insane. And I see my dad and my brother and my sister. I see the family unit get destroyed. And then I see if I go back. And if I go back, I see my parents suffer. But I don't see what I saw if I stay. But then the divine shows me the beauty of my mom and dad's deaths. And after their deaths, they become bliss like me. All of that is gone. And so in the end, all's well for them as well. And so the voice meanwhile saying, make a choice. And I say without language, understanding my parents coming to bliss, understanding the brevity of life, snap of my fingers. That's how long how every life is. I think to myself, well, I can do that. I say without language, can I come back here? And the voice says to me, yes, you come back to me. Always come back to me. And I say, well, then I choose to live my life. And it says to me, you won't live your life, and throws me out. And I'm back inside that angelic entity like a spacecraft being carried. And I'm getting denser and denser as I get further and further from the divine. And as I'm flying back, being flown back, there's this huge beam of white that parallels me. And I look back to see where it's from, and it's coming out of the deep darkness, and it's going right by me. And in front of me, it's creating all of these doorways, and they're all overlapping like a flower, like petals on a multi-petaled flower. And in the center is the beam of light. And that beam of light spreads through all the petals, but decreases as it gets out to the further edge, where there's still some shimmer, but not nearly much. And the angelic being says to me, which is the mouthpiece of the divine, choose light, choose a life. And I've got to choose which petal I'm going to go through. And so I want the light, but I want to be a human. I think to myself, how am I going to carry this with me? How am I going to talk about this? If I'm perfect, I cannot. If I am a regular human being full of flaws, maybe I can. Maybe then I can speak. I have this very instant list of what I want from life. And then I'm in the doorway, in that petal. And I'm now suddenly stuck inside this form. I'd been whole and well and full with no suffering at all. Now I'm stuck inside this shell and I'm already in pain. And what has happened to me? Where was I? Why am I here? What's going on? And I began to hear noises that I didn't understand. And then I began to feel this thing I was in shake. And I opened my eyes and there's Tim. And Tim is leaning over me. He's got me by my jacket and he's shaking me, screaming at me, don't die, don't die, don't die, don't die, don't die. And he's yelling at the top of his lungs and he's kind of pounded my body. He doesn't know CPR or anything. And he's in a terrible state of emotion. And it takes him a moment to see me through his tears and his fears. And suddenly he's like, oh my God, I thought you were dead. I thought you were dead. I thought you were dead. And he kind of pulls me to my feet, and he had unharnessed himself from the mountain. He pulls me up and I'm standing kind of wobbly there. And he says to me, pull the rope. And I pull the rope and the rope comes free. And he descended first and I descended after. We got the tent out of the car. We set it up. Because of my training, we self-treated for hypothermia and frostbite. And we waited till way after sunrise. And I came back an entirely different person. The world was different.
Imagine, if you will, your retirement savings in tiny little suits. That's how Josh Arnold thinks about your money. Seriously, he's the Twin Cities investment strategist who talks to numbers. He tames numbers, and occasionally he teaches them the bossa nova, which is weird. Your 401k, your IRA, your bewildering mutual funds, they deserve better than to sit on the couch smoking cigs, doing nothing. They deserve tap dancing calculators, miniature fedoras, a spontaneous jazz hands routine with weird nail polish. Oh, God. Josh will give you 48 minutes completely free, people. 48 minutes to talk about transforming your investments from confused toddlers into perfectly choreographed financial acrobats. You call Josh, 952-925-5608. Your money's going to learn to do backflips, or at least politely argue with a stapler about interest rates. Josh Arnold, serious advice delivered with more flair than a parade of suit-wearing retirement funds.
Investment services offered by Josh Arnold Investment Consultant, LLC, a security and investment advisor. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. All investments involve risk. Tommy MISCHKE is a paid endorser.
You know the difference between extraordinary and ordinary? Ordinary is an optical store sending your glasses out to get the lenses made. Extraordinary is a store that has its own lab on premises, with technicians so good that other optical stores send them their most complicated prescriptions. That's Spectacle Shop, people. 4 locations in the Twin Cities, voted best eyewear shop 5 years running now by readers of the Star Tribune. In other words, every single time there's been a vote. You want vintage frames? They have more than anyone in North America. You want designer frames no one else carries? Check. They don't just sell glasses at Spectacle Shop. They make your eyes happy. They make your face look fabulous. Their style is undeniable. People will ask, where did you get your glasses? Spectacle Shop, where your vision meets the world's most incredible frames, where your lenses are crafted by the best, and where ordinary optical stores quietly sigh in envy. Spectacle Shop, don't just wear glasses. Own your look. When you were looking at the different portals, the different doorways, and having a choice to pick one, that puzzles me. It has the sense of what might happen before someone is born to begin with. But this is you returning to a life you already had. What were those options?
They all led back to the body, the same body. But the life I would lead depended upon the door that I chose. The voice said to me, you're not going to live your own life. It told me to choose light. It wanted me to choose the center of the flower. It was all going back to one body, but I could enter into any kind of person I wanted to be. I could have chosen to be the worst measure of a human sadist, or I could have chosen to be the most illuminated being that I could be. I chose kind of off to the light into the human, not far away from the light, but not in the middle of it. I am 100% sure I would have come back to the same body, but the life I would lead depended upon the purity of my choice. And so the closer I chose to the light, the more the residual of the experience I just had came with me. And so subsequently in my life, as I've come to understand it's the animal nature of animals to hurt other animals. And so accepting that I was going to hurt other people, but yet knowing that I was exactly like them, governed my compassion and kindness to do as little damage as possible. And I think that's a function of how close I chose to the light, but also I could lean closer to the light with every choice I made. I came to understand that by the intention of my interior direction of my heart, I could choose being closer to the light, which I've done for my entire life. Since that day, that's all I've done. Successfully, who knows? Mm-hmm. But I know that the radiance lives inside me in an increasing capacity.
What do you think would have happened had you chose the center of the flower?
Oh, I've thought a lot about that. I know that the purity wanted me to. Did I miss my calling? Did I lose an opportunity? I sometimes think I did.
The sense I got was going to the center meant losing more of you. Going to the center meant more of that dissipating, disappearing, whether that's ego or whatever you want to call it. You would have lost more of that individual presence, and you wanted to keep some of that.
I did, and I've spent my entire life trying to rid myself of it.
Yeah, that's an extraordinary thing. I have not heard of a near-death experience, perhaps you have, where that choice was available. I have known about choices of whether to stay or to return to the body, but I've not known about a choice to come back and live various versions of your life. That really intrigues me. Have you since run into that often?
Never.
Was there a sense when you were having this experience that you were being downloaded information that allowed you to understand a grand picture that you can't understand as Peter just walking around here in the United States right now?
1,000%. My brain is way too small. But there was this experience when I wanted to know everything. All that knowledge downloaded into me in an instant. And now all I know is that I had that experience. I can't tell you how it all works. I know that I can't comprehend it. My brain is way, way, way too small. And that's not just for the knowledge on the other side. My capacity for the carrying of the light itself is limited because I'm in human form. I know who I am, even so. I know where I'm from. I know to whom I belong. I know where I'm going. And the more I lean into the light, the more I aim toward the light that I didn't fully choose when I left, the easier it is for me to function here. It's less about the understanding, less about the knowledge. It's more for me about the living presence itself, the connection. My motivation is the presence itself. And that is the most important thing that I carry with me. And because it's my connection to myself, to my home, to my being capable of functioning in the world. I came back bereft. I was suicidal. I had suicidal ideation. I prayed every day to die. And it turned out that my very estrangement from my beloved was the driving factor of my interior practice. The thing that I lost drove me toward the thing that I want. And as a result of all of that, I can't wait to go back. I'm cool with being here till I leave.
You went through pretty profound changes and became a different person. And how would you describe that? I know you spent some time going into the literature of various spiritual disciplines, trying to get some sense of understanding of what you had been through on that mountain. How long did it take you to find some peace?
Oh, I came back with peace.
Okay.
But I came back with turmoil. They lived together inside of me. And the more time I spent in peace, the more comfortable I was. And I spent as much time in the centered place of peace as I could, because the rest of it was a beautiful hellscape. It was torturous for me. I came back an entirely different person and isolated myself from everybody. I started reading. I found Paramahansa Yogananda. I found the Upanishads. I found Bhagavad Gita, and I read all of them, and then I read the Yoga Sutras and Rumi and Kafir, and I took a class at the university on comparative mysticism, and I ended up going to graduate school and convinced the dean of students to let me study mysticism across the university for 3 years under her tutelage. She found money and professors and supported me through. I never told her why, and I studied East and West deep mysticism. I chose intentionally not to study modern mystics because people come and people go. I needed literature that stood the test of hundreds or thousands of years. I needed the ancients because I knew that something weird had happened to me and I didn't have any idea how to even think about it. So I studied and wrote papers and came to an understanding of the literature of mysticism on a global level and decided to go for my doctorate, wrote my dissertation, and I had gotten married in the meantime. We got pregnant and I couldn't go on for my doctorate. And the dean talked me into becoming a United Church of Christ minister. So I joined the church, even though I'm not a Christian. I studied theology and biblical history and studied the Gospels. I'm well-versed, but all of my religion, anything that human beings have made up, that all went away from me. I made a rational decision to hide inside Christianity, knowing that every religion starts with a mystic and then the theologians get on board. And that's where doctrine and dogma come from and all the rules and regulations. No, faith is an aspect of belief. And I have experience. I have knowledge. I know that I'm known by the knower with a capital K. Jesus wasn't a Christian. Moses wasn't a Jew. Muhammad wasn't a Muslim. They were mystics. They were mystics who brought forth some truth in the context of their culture, through the brain that they had and the body and the language that was available to them in the situation they found themselves in. And once you put it into words, it's already steps away from the thing itself. And then pretty soon it's a religion. I'm not a man of faith. I am not a believer. I'm an experiencer. I went to work in the church for 18 years as a pastor, working with the dying and the grieving and doing a lot of social justice, speaking in the language that the people could understand from the pulpit, misleading them into believing that I was a believer, even though I wasn't. And my understanding of who I am and who everybody is around me completely changed. I am not at all the person I was, yet I carry all the memories and I still have all the foibles of the brain and all the disabilities of the body. And yet I'm not at all that person.
Are you a minister now?
I'm still officially ordained because there's this thing called ontological change. My ordination can't be taken away. So I am still an ordained minister, reverend. I have left the denomination. And because I'm ontologically changed, they can't take away my ordination. So yes. And what I'm about to do, Tommy, is on Monday, I'm about to become the Maine State Maximum Security Prison Chaplain.
I'm fascinated by that for about 3 reasons. The pursuit of a spiritual life, becoming a minister, reading up on all the different mystics, none of that surprises me. That's what I would have expected. But as you choose this next step, what intrigues me about that is there's an intensity to it. There's something hard about it. You're choosing a step that isn't the same as I'm going to go work with kids, going to teach them about spirituality in Marin County, and we're going to take walks along the beach and talk about God. You're going into a dark world to bring some light, and that dark world is going to affect you. Again, I'm assuming there's a lot of different things you could do right now, and you're picking this world, a world full of tough, hardened, rough folks, and you're going to be there to comfort them in a way that is going to be seemingly tricky, given who and what they are.
For sure. For sure. So the whole time I was, for the 18 years I was a minister, a lot of my ministry was with the hard cases. I worked a lot in domestic violence. There were murders and arsons, assaults, violence, grief, despair, insanity. I think some of the best work I did, the most helpful work I did, were those with those in the most need. I counsel people all the time. I have a counseling service where I help people who are in need in lots of different ways, but with a specialty in near-death experience integration, after mystical experience integration, because it blows your mind. If it's a big one, you are not the same person you were yesterday. You have to adjust psychologically, emotionally, spiritually, and relationally. And so I spent a lot of my life working in domestic violence. like with victims. And then I sat on the state of Maine's domestic violence homicide review panel with the attorney general and detectives and women who run domestic violence shelters around the state. And so I have had a long exposure. I've been assaulted. I'm a victim of violent crime. I've been shot at. I've been held at gunpoint. I've been attacked. This world is not that alien from me. It's a pressure cooker for sure. But the people who are there, they have light inside of them too. I don't have to look for it. It is there. I see light in everyone. I see it in birds and trees. I see it in my enemies. I see it in the people who hate me. I see it everywhere I go. I can't not see it. And because I can't not see it, I see who they are at the core of their being. I can't help it. It's a good capstone for my life here on this earth. I feel like, if not me, then who? Who else is as prepared for me for this than me? Not because it's my ego, but because I've hung out with the Native Americans in Inepes. I prayed with Sufis. I've been in mosques. I've hung out in temples. I'm friends with the Sikhs. I've hung with the Krishnas. I've been around the block, spiritually speaking, and not in a superficial way. I have great versatility in my understanding of humanity based in the light that's inside of them and their brokenness. I know, because of my hellish experience of self-judgment, I know what it is to be a broken person. I have come back knowing I'm broken, which is why my whole life has been working with broken people, because broken people are most ripe, most ready. Not everybody, of course. And I know it's going to hurt me. I know it's going to be hard. I know it's going to change me. But I can't help but know my own eternal nature and that I'm out of here. So I can endure a lot. And I think I can help these guys if they'll let me. I'm going to hopefully try to help them find that which is already inside them. That's really my job. I'm not an evangelist. I'm a companion seeker.
Do you know that feeling when a bank gets you, really gets you? Of course you don't, because where you bank, they don't get you. But I'm trying to get you to go to North American Banking Company, 6 locations in the Twin Cities, and not a one of them feels like any kind of cold, national, soulless chain. At North American Banking Company, your name matters, your story matters, your goals matter. They're not interested in endless forms, automated voices, making you a number on some screen. They're interested in what matters to you. Buying a home, starting a business, saving for a dream, whatever it is, North American Banking Company takes the time to listen, to understand, to help. Banking is not supposed to feel cold or distant. It's supposed to feel human. North American Banking Company, community-driven, personal, rooted right here in the Twin Cities. Stop by one of their 6 locations. Come experience what banking with a heartbeat feels like.
North American Banking Company, member FDIC, equal housing lender.
Imagine a car lot where the cars greet you by name, where a Ford pickup tips its mirrors politely, where a Jeep winks its headlights, or a Buick hums like it's practicing for a recital to entertain you. That's Fury. Fury Motors, they're everywhere now. Whether it's Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep in Stillwater and South St. Paul, the Ford in Waconia that you're looking at, or the Buick and GMC in Forest Lake, the Fury way is what's so impressive. Plus, they have all the used cars you could ever imagine, and they look like they just came off the assembly line. They're practically whispering to you, pick me, pick me, pick me. Since 1963, Fury Motors has been a multi-generational family operation built with the philosophy that the customer isn't only always right, the customer's damn smart. Walk onto the lot at Fury and the other cars are going to notice you. They're going to nudge each other. They're going to quietly argue over who gets to go home with you. Stop by one of the Fury locations. Test drive the Fury way.
On Monday, I'm about to become the Maine State Maximum Security Prison Chaplain.
If one of them were to ask you, given your story of what's waiting after death, that extraordinary bliss and love, and given the horrors that I've seen in my life, that I've both been the victim of and perpetrated, why that chasm between where we're supposedly from and what we are, what the hell is going on there? It's almost comical. It's so perversely different. The horrors of Earth and the bliss of what near-death experiencers take in. There's a point at which you want to scream, why was it ever created to begin with? What was the point of it all? Why bring about this swirl of insanity?
Well, first, it's not just humans. Humans are super anthrocentric. We believe we are the pinnacle of all there is. Everything here is broken. I live in the country. And so I was on my studio stoop one day with my little buddy, the chipmunk, as the broad-winged hawk came down and boom. And that was the end of my friend. The whole structure is broken. And it's not just Earth. You can look at the moon and see that it's the moon, asteroids striking it. It's the whole universe. It's all the galaxies, the entire place from the Big Bang on 13 billion years out to now. The whole place is broken. It wouldn't exist without imperfection. And so when I was dead, I experienced the perfection. I saw that for this place to exist, for me to have a consciousness here and have a brain, it has to be less than. Because if it's not less than, it's heaven. And so its mere existence has to be a reduction, a poorer construction. That's one answer. Another answer is, what's the one thing the unlimited, the capital U, what's the one thing the unlimited can't experience? If it's unlimited, it can't experience limitation because it's unlimited. And so all of this, and not just our universe, not just humanity, it's all the universes I saw being created. It's the divine being exploring its own nature. I am literally, you are literally, we are all literally God. And the hard part of that is that there's so much violence here. Even that person is also God doing violence unto other parts of God. The whole thing is like that. Even if humanity wasn't causing the suffering, there's still earthquakes. No brokenness, no existence, period. Black holes, center of the galaxy, sucking down star systems. That's true in every single galaxy, and there's a septillion of those. It's the nature of being. Fortunately for us, it's totally temporary.
When you were experiencing the suffering of others, suffering you had caused, I don't have to be a loving, forgiving God to know that in none of that suffering were you causing it from a point of understanding who you were or
Right.
what the big picture was. And in fact, you were probably doing what everything up till that moment had allowed to happen and nothing else. There wasn't the ability to have choice C, D, or E given who you were in that moment with your weaknesses, your strengths. I find myself feeling like I can forgive anything given the fact that logically I can easily see that anybody choosing something would not choose that if they were a little less ignorant, and that choice that they're making is out of that ignorance. Once you see this blissful world and this incredible love, well, sure, now look at who you are. Now look at what a wonderful soul you are. What would you have been without it? Ignorant to this and probably living a life of hurting far more people, far more brutally.
No doubt.
When you felt shame seeing all the suffering you caused, were you simultaneously seeing that that person causing that suffering wouldn't have done it with this understanding you have right now? There's almost a perverse unfairness to it. If the whole of existence was given the big picture you were given, imagine what a different world it would be even with earthquakes, even with asteroids. Imagine how wondrous humanity would be if they all could get that picture. That's always what seems so sad about the NDE. It's a glimpse by a fraction of the population.
But everybody's going to find out the moment that they die.
When
The
it's
thing
too
is that
late.
they don't know that.
It's too late in the sense that the horrors I can see today opening up the paper, they don't have to be there. If people knew, if people were awakened to what you saw. I remember a movie one time. It was a ridiculous movie, but they were trying to induce NDEs. They were trying to get themselves to die for a few seconds to have the experience. And boy, did I understand that. Did I understand that desire to check out for a couple of minutes, to have that experience, to be changed?
Well, I wouldn't recommend it. The downside is as big as the upside.
Why were you suicidal? Why didn't you say, my God, I no longer have to fear death. I'm going to live my life and die. Why were you suicidal?
I was suicidal because this place is everything you just described it as. It's a hell. Of that, there is no doubt. Anybody who lives long enough gets touched by it. There's no escape from that. I could shake my fist at heaven, but I decided that I'm much more practical than that. I live with what I have. I make the best of what's in front of me. And I know where I'm from and I know where I'm going. And the whole NDE world, science is bringing people back from the dead in unprecedented numbers by the tens of millions, which has never happened in the history of humanity. And so we are out there trying to do the very thing we're trying to tell people about it, so that maybe we can nudge society in the direction of being humane.
For my money, it's the best story going. So on Earth right now, the NDE stories are the most important stories out there. The first time I encountered was at Raymond Moody's book. How many years ago did he bust open the doors on these near-death experience stories? It's been a long, long time now, decades, since this moved into the consciousness of people, where you could go to the library or go to a bookstore and see something there that you pulled off a shelf and started to read stories like yours, and you went, oh my God, you're kidding me. And they always rang true to me. Never once did I come upon them and go, I don't buy it. To me, it was like every cell in my body resonated with what I was reading. It was so obviously genuine. And so to me, it was the equivalent of Thomas Jefferson sending out Lewis and Clark and them coming back later and saying, here's what's out there, boss. And him saying, thanks a lot. I appreciate you guys going out there and let me know what's out there between here and the Northwest of the United States, the Pacific Ocean. Thank you. And he wrote it down, and he didn't say one time, I doubt they're telling the truth. He said, all right, these are my guys. Here's what they told me. Well, now take that times thousands and thousands and thousands of people have had these same experiences. At a certain point, you're a moron if you don't at least say it clearly is possible that all these people are having experiences that are absolutely as real as anything we know right here. I never understand people who dismiss them. To me, it would be like dismissing Lewis and Clark. Like they come back and say, well, here's the passage of the Pacific. There's no way in hell you know that. And then there's 20 more Lewis and Clarks. No, they're wrong too. And then there's 1,000 Lewis. Now they must be wrong too. I mean, at a certain point, it's on you and your stubbornness not to accept it. So I've always been very comfortable with the story, but I have struggled with things like, what is this game that's afoot where we're in this density and this darkness, and there's this little chunk of light in all of us no one can see, and we're going to all live in this little hell together and only have little glimpses of loveliness, and then we're going to die and realize how wonderful it all is, making the whole ride on this planet seem, again, sort of like a prank, like a sick prank. I know I'm being a little hard on life, but there is a point at the chasm between the beauty of what you experience and the horror of this plane. I can't reconcile them. I am curious if when you were having your NDE and you were getting these downloads where you did understand the big picture, did it in that moment in your memory, did it all make sense to you? Was there a moment in the near-death experience where at least then and there you said, I get it?
Yeah, every moment. It wasn't one moment. It was all the moments. I think it's in God's spell. I send you, Jesus sings, I send you prophets and I send you preachers, ages and ages of something in teachers. This thing that we're talking about here, it's in the Upanishads, it's in the Vedas, it's in the Jesus story, it's in Kafir, it's everywhere. It's just that people don't listen. Maybe with the megaphone of the tens of millions of NDEers, maybe people will listen. But the problem with that is it's an experience, not a belief. So People have been shaking their fist at heaven since ancient Greece and ancient India. Nobody's ever answered that question. And if we had a satisfactory answer, we wouldn't be having this conversation. But what is satisfactory is the presence of the divine itself. And that is accessible to everybody should they choose to pursue it. Most don't. For me, instead of moaning about my situation being back in this, I'm from Boston, we swear a lot. I'm preventing myself from swearing at this very moment. This hellscape, I can't answer that question. So I chose to dive into the one thing that I do know, which is the love and light itself. And in there, I find my salvation and my sanctity and my safety and my relief. It doesn't change my suffering, but it changes my perspective of being here. And I know that the psychopaths who end up with huge amounts of power running nations from their egoic self-centeredness and their control of finances and weaponry, they don't get this. And they're probably never going to get it, not until they die. But I don't have to participate in that.
The other thing that has always puzzled me is how difficult love is. Other things are very easy. It's very easy to be self-centered, very easy to be a jerk. It's not hard at all to be a little cruel. Those things come really easy. Being loving takes effort, more of an effort, and truly being a vessel of love, a real vessel of love on this earth, that's a rarity.
And it doesn't pay.
It doesn't pay. So not only was the world made the way it was, but love was made to be an elusive thing, which again just seems even more twisted to me. It is a difficult thing to become a truly, deeply, profoundly loving soul. It is not difficult to be a cad, to be an idiot. Really easy to just be selfish. It's one of the easiest things in the world. Again, why the good thing was made harder to get to just feels like a practical joke.
Unless you consider the necessity of the selfish egoic mind for the survival of the species, especially early on. If you're a hominid and you're walking around, you're by yourself, it's either you eat this thing or that other creature eats this thing. You kill that other thing and you eat. It's a survivability thing. And then you bind together in family units and in tribes. I'm going to eat that beast before you do so I can survive. And that animalistic behavior was necessary for the survival of the species.
Yeah. So there's a world still of animals. We're still
animals.
We're still animals.
Yep.
Heading toward hopefully something less animalistic, but doing it in a slow and very plodding way. And maybe these little experiences like the ones you had and so many other thousands have had are ways of speeding it up.
I think that we're messengers. And that's one of the reasons why I'm talking to you, Tommy, is because I'm speaking to you to trying to raise that flag. Yeah. I want everybody to see the NDE flag because I too, like you, think it's the most important story that there is, but I also think it's the potential for the salvation of humanity to save it from itself.
Well, I have kept you a long time and you have a big change coming up in your life. And I am so grateful to you for taking this time with me. It's an important story. As I said, to me, it's the biggest story going right now out there. I don't know what story's bigger than confronting reality as it is and passing it along to people. I just don't know what a bigger story than that is. I do want people to know how to learn more about you, so please let them know. I also haven't said a word about books. Please mention that.
I'm at peterpanagore.love, peterpanagore.love, and I do counseling. Because I'm beginning this new part of my career, it's curtailed, but I have hours available beginning in October. And I am an international best-selling Audible author for Heaven is Beautiful, How Dying Taught Me That Death is Just the Beginning. And I have a main bestseller, a collection of brief stories of inspiration in a book called 2 Minutes for God.
It's an extraordinary, extraordinary thing, both the life you've lived and the story you tell and where your life is going right now. It's just utterly astounding to me in the best way. I want to thank you again. I hope somewhere down the road I get to meet you.
Oh, I'd love that, Tommy. And thanks for having me on your show.
Yes,
I appreciate this.
You're very welcome. All the best to you going forward.
Peace.